Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and today I'm joined by Aaron Cohen and Alex Shoemaker. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
I'm getting over a little something, so I sound like a cartoon character myself today, so maybe that's fitting.
We've had Alex on twice before, but this is a new version of Alex, so it's a brand new interview.
It's actually not Alex. I sent somebody in my stead. That's why it sounds like this.
It's 2.0. It's Alex 2.0.
Yeah.
Yes. We have a new book we're talking about today, and it's perfect timing because this is coming out during Passover. Can you guys tell us a little bit about your guys' new book?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take it. Yes, this is called Sticks and Stones Holiday Special. You know, it's a book that focuses on one family. Alex and I created this family, the Feynmans, for a short we did in the Cloakroom Anthology #3. We created a short called Crime and Passover, and it's a really fun Jewish family called the Feynmans, and kind of what happens to them over the holiday, and then about their son Ben, who kind of fancies himself a Meyer Lansky-esque, character, like his own version of Goodfellas, and looks at everything as if it's a detective mystery story.
The little Bugsy Siegel.
Yeah, exactly. So we put him at the center of it, and when we created the short, we thought we really love these characters. We really love this world. We know it. It pays respect to our families and our history and our heritage, and we wanted to carry it on. So we decided to do a holiday special that expands on the family and shows you Passover, Hanukkah, and Purim, and then connects all those holidays together as well with a single story. So it's a 28-page book focusing on the Jewish holidays and this crazy family and the mysteries that Ben tries to unravel each holiday.
But also focusing on the similarities of large communities and marginalized communities, and when you come from those kind of big extended families, there's a lot of parallels to draw, not just Judaism, but to a lot of different ones. So while the representation for us is an important factor for sure, because we want Jewish kids out there to see themselves in books, it's also just about accentuating things that tie us together too, that bind us all as people living on this planet.
Yeah, there's something universal in specificity, right? The more specific you get into something, the more you look at it and say, wow, that's, our holidays are very similar when we gather for whatever we gather for, when we're around a table arguing about whatever we're arguing about, or this aunt always sings songs for no reason, right?
The nicknames for family members and things like that. Oh
yeah, like it's a universal thing, and it's important. It's important to show that that everyone has this common ground of holidays and going home for the holidays.
Yeah, and the tone and the imagery, while you might not recognize every name, you will definitely recognize the style. It feels very much Dennis the Menace, Sunday cartoon, Sunday morning, in actual newspaper animation strips. A lot of this is pulled from there. Was there any particular inspiration for you guys visually for this one?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that wasn't the first thing that I ever wanted to do when I got into comics, and I wanted to be a syndicated newspaper cartoonist. And at the time, it was sort of this shift between print and online that they hadn't really figured out yet. So it wasn't. I think they have it a little more figured out now, but it wasn't really that viable. And I learned that about 10 years or like 6 years into trying to do that. So I switched to comic books, but that comic strip, Watterson and Walt Kelly and Gus Ariela, who did Gordo, and just this litany of wonderful, like brushy cartoonists from that era. And like little fine details here and there, because I think it got simplified as that art form continued on. Dilbert. But back in the day, they had these big pages to really show you what they can do and stretch their legs as illustrators. So, well, yeah, a lot of that is still stuck in there for me. So it was kind of a combination between that and I think it was just called Survivor Dinner episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. A lot of the character designs
Oh,
are
that's like season 1 or 2. You are going back to the
uh-huh.
old Curbs.
Yeah.
Going deep curb cut.
Yeah. But that's where. But I watched that, and I had read, what Aaron had written, and that very very quickly was familiar. It was my family, and so then I watched that episode, and it's same thing. That like when Aaron's story hit me, it was the same thing. It was like, oh, those designs, that story, that feel, that all belongs together. But the comic strip aspect, the animation aspect too, Don Bluth and Saturday morning cartoons, were all very important to me growing up too.
Yeah. And you feel the source material coming through, like this is definitely part of your guys' life. Was there a specific moment or family memory that you guys really pulled on when you're trying to create these settings?
For me, it was just kind of like, you go to these holidays as a kid and you don't really look forward to them. Like
Okay.
you find ways as a kid to make them entertaining for you as a kid because they're meant for other things, especially if you don't have a huge family, if you have a smaller family, whatever you have. I think sometimes you look forward to certain aspects, like you look forward to a certain tradition, you look forward to a certain food, right? But at the end of the day, especially with Passover, which was the first story I wrote
Yeah.
for it, you could have a 2 hour, service before the meal that you have to sit through and not eat, you know. And then as the youngest, you have the 4 questions, and the youngest, which was me, of course, you're then tasked with saying the 4 questions, and there's a certain level of anxiety that goes along with that. So it was always this sort of vibe of, going into the holiday, but then looking back at it as an adult and saying, that made me who I am, right? These holidays shaped me in a lot of ways. Those funny interactions, those inside jokes, those crazy characters in my family shaped who I am.
And the little nuggets of wisdom, the little
Yeah,
pearls that came
Yeah.
through, filtered through all the cacophony of familial craziness. Those are things that take root very early too and stay with you.
so we really, I think we both wanted to show that love for that time frame, the love for the holidays, and just for crazy families, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes you who you are, and you appreciate it so much more. I think where we are now in life and looking back at it, I think is important. So so that was sort of the thing. And then also at Passover, I always thought, wow, 10 people around a long table for 2 hours is a great place for a murder mystery. Like I always thought about Clue. I always thought about, Murder by Death. I always thought about, these type of, Agatha Christie type things where it's like 10 people at a table for 2 hours. What's happening behind the scenes? And so that was the catalyst for making it mystery stories.
Yeah.
Ours
And
contains no murder. It is all ages. Just
it is
FYI,
all ages.
mystery.
And that,
Yeah.
to touch on
Mystery.
your comic strip thing too, that was what I loved about those stories too, is comic
Yeah.
strips and that type of cartoon storytelling that Alex is so gifted at. Um, it's water cooler. It's evergreen for the entire family to enjoy. Um,
Yeah.
we used to read Sunday strips like, Calvin Hobbes or
Yeah.
Zitz or, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And, we would talk about it as a family. Did you read this? Oh, that's funny. Because it was universal, right? And
Right.
that was
Right.
something we both really wanted to bring to it, these gags and these jokes that some will go over people's heads, some will land exactly right, and that's
Mhm.
it.
And there's this history too, this rich history that Aaron and I have discussed too, of but the Jewish people and other any kind of immigrant communities or marginalized communities. There's this great history of storytelling, and that's been passed down through generations and generations, and you keeping the culture alive, and you're keeping the folk heroes alive, and you're keeping all those things alive through this tradition. And I think for Aaron and I, that's a little bit of that too that we've kind of realized we're sort of partaking in. this sort of history of sharing stories. So and like specifically stories about our community and our traditions and our celebrations. So it's it has a few different layers to it.
And excuse me if I'm overanalyzing this, but with Passover, there's a level of liberation and redemption there. And then we see with Ben and his kind of pursuits beyond the kids' table. Were you guys intentionally trying to connect those two?
I was in a way, the idea that as a character, Ben, he's, a little ruthless as a kid. All kids can be ruthless when they want to
Oh
get
yeah.
what they want as a kid. Um, but what he really wanted ultimately, what he really wants ultimately is to be respected and be a part of the family and to be at the adult table and be taken seriously. Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and and I thought that was interesting. And I think that's what a lot of family members and a lot of kids want, especially young kids who have a lot of older family members, right? Where
Yeah.
you might be one of only three kids at a thing, right? Um, so yeah, so it rang true to me to have that sort of twist in the story, where his motivations are set in one direction, but they're really not what you think they are, the whole time. And
It's
then
like
the
a
other,
counter melody in music.
yeah, and that's a fun thing to play with and a fun thing to have as a character trait for this kid.
The other part of that too is sort of positioning himself as an adult. Like that came through in everything we talked about in the design and stuff too, which is why he dresses in like a full-on mobster suit, which is
Yeah.
clearly too big for him. But for him, that's not the idea. It's aspirational, and because that trap of like being a kid in an adults only world, which those sort of celebrations can feel like at times. There's something that you have to do to sort of break through, that white noise sometimes for yourself just to keep your sanity. And so for Ben, which is a very fun tie-in for us, it's like it's through his own storytelling, sort of inner monologuing.
Yeah. What I like about that is clearly Ben probably got that suit from his cousin that he's trying to overthrow. Like it's probably a hand-me-down. That's a hand-me-down.
Yeah. Oh
So he's trying
yeah.
to take his cousin's spot.
Yeah,
Yeah, Alex, wasn't that, didn't you drew it like a little large on him kind
yeah.
of thing?
That's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
the sleeves, flop all over the places.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's going to be growing into it for 10 years.
Yeah. What made Ben the right character for you guys? Like you said, he's very much kind of this detective noir. You could expect, smoky room kind of character, but he's through the lens of this little kid. What made that the right point for the center of the story?
Yeah, for me, what I liked about it is, there's a few things. One is that you're kind of like this as a kid, you kind of sometimes feel like you're the star of your own movie, right? You're kind of
Oh,
your
okay. I
own
like that.
narrator.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you remember the feeling walking out of a movie like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you're like, I'm Indiana Jones, right? This is how it is, right? Um, and I always feel that's a great trait. Like you have these kind of things in your head, that you're there, and you're like, this is how I see the world, because you don't see it through anyone else's eyes, really, as
Hmm.
at that age. Um, so for him to be able to take that inner voice of him being the center of his own thing, but then make that the narration, make it like this, you know, um, sort of where what he would say in Italian if it was a more of a mobster type gangster movie, but make it Yiddish, right? And make him
Yeah.
kind of have this vibe to it where he's leading the story, he kind of did it. But at the center, it's, he has a good heart. And I think that's the center of a lot of these sort of comic strip or cartoon characters that Alex and I love is, they're rambunctious, right? And they have these things on the surface, but at the bottom line, they're there for their family, do whatever it takes.
And for us too, it's like, I think we had in mind from the beginning that this was going to be, we were going to play up the comedy, play up the humor, play up the like absurd exaggerations and stuff. So, if we were going to be doing that, having a kid, I think, positioned in the center of that hurricane it gives us a lot of creative license to really stretch that and like really push that. Because if you had one of the older uncles doing the same kind of things that Ben was doing, they'd put him in a home. Grandpa's gone. Like we for his own good, man. So having a kid, I think it gives us the demo that we're aiming towards. It gives them somebody to relate to, and then it also just gives us the freedom to just be wild, which is why things like by Bill Watterson, why things like Calvin and Hobbes were able to do that. Because if you had an adult doing that, there'd be some serious follow-up questions about that person's mental health.
And with the full book, with this new book, you're going to meet, you're going to go much deeper into the other family members, right? So you'll get to meet more about them. There's going to be entirely new characters introduced. He has a cousin named Ella who's an influencer and does a lot of online stuff, and she'll be there, and they'll butt heads, right? Because they almost come from different worlds, right? Yeah. And then in the story about Purim, he teams up with his dad. So it's his dad and him teaming up to solve something, right?
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
So there's, expanding that world, give Alex and I the opportunity to just really get into his characters more.
Yeah. I believe it's his uncle is the one that I really want to. Yeah, Uncle Joe. He seems like a character that's destined for some good stories in the future. I want to hear more from Uncle Joe.
I'm sure he's got some gory ones in his pocket that are completely inappropriate to tell the little kids at the gathering. Exactly what he's going to do. Yeah. And then I was holding my friend's arm, but those bastards kept coming, that kind of thing.
I imagined Uncle Joe was the one that was like actually stealing the prize every time. He's like, we didn't need to give people free money. I could take it myself, whatever.
Yeah. He'd be eating it in the back.
Yeah. Everybody's too afraid to blame Uncle Joe. I think they're too scared to accuse him.
Yeah, and he knows it. One of the things you brought up, Aaron, was a really good point. The way that you kind of that mob boss mentality gives you like a protect the family thing, and so many of these very tight knit communities, myself included, that turn inward. They're immigrants or they're marginalized at some point in history, and unfortunately still today, they turn inward toward each other, and there's very much a protective, surround the wagons aspect of that. So I think that whether or not you do have a Jewish background, but some other background, maybe you find something to relate to in that sense too, where there's little customs and things like that come from this inward faced community. And I think that rings true. Yeah. I mean, I myself am not Jewish, but I found a lot of aunts and uncles on these pages that were very much my aunts and uncles.
That's what we're hoping for is that
that's the plan.
The bridge, it's like, that's why we focused on a lot of the aspects that we did.
And that's the thing with, my family's from New York originally, and the neighborhood there it's always mixed, it's always immigrant neighborhoods of all different ethnicities and all different cultures, all sharing food, because what everyone has in common is, eat something, right? That's all it says. Eat something, you're too thin, you got to eat something. That's every family, right?
Yeah.
So every family growing up in the neighborhood is reflected in that way. And especially things like, the Italian community and different other types of, communities that came to the city, everyone sort of bands together. It's one neighborhood and one community and one family. And that's sort of what, I want to bring across.
It's the mentality like we can mock our own, but don't you dare say a thing about them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Exactly.
This story clearly is balancing a lot of strong humor, but with a lot of warmth and heart. How do you guys find that balance? How do you make sure you don't push too close to one or the other?
You talk about the art aspect first, Alex?
Yeah, I think, there is a, for lack of a better term, sort of a bounciness or a cartooniness to the art that I'm doing for this. But it also has, the expressions are very important to me. And so for me, the control of that balance from, absurd to affectionate, it's mostly in the expressions. The body language also plays in, for me, I think that factors in more when there's some action going on, but especially when you're trying to, bring it to a more emotional level or something that isn't as reliant on things happening. For me, it's going to be the expressions that have to work hand in hand with the dialogue, or even if it's a silent, moment, they have to both, capitalize on what the other is doing. So I think for me, the the expression is one of the ways that I control that. And also when, working with Ralph, we use color in a lot of ways too. There's that section in Crime and Passover where there's a bit of a flashback, and I'm hoping people will read it, so I don't want to go into too much about it. But we did something very different there with the colors, and so we use that palette. And Aaron, Ralph, and I all work very closely and are always talking about these things. So we use color too to shift mood, shift tone, herald something new going on. That all has to work together seamlessly to make it work.
Yeah, and in that scene, if I remember on that page, it was the sound effect that we added that really added humor to it.
Right.
And you and I figured that out on a text thread in the car.
Because
Right.
we did the cheerleader. Go.
Yeah. Yeah, we divided it up and we're like, this should be like a cheerleader saying it. And we're like, yeah, do it like this.
And so we
and
use
it's
cheerleading
finding those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
literally like college text right now.
Yeah. So like lettering is another way, because you can manipulate things like lettering and give a lot of information just through that. So that was one of those instances using the big block college lettering, the one very associated with like pep rallies or cheerleaders. We use that, which we don't have to say anything else. That's the marker right there. That's all you need to sort of guide you to where we need you to be.
Yeah, and then for me, it's interesting because I think it always comes around to the affection for family, and like you said, coming up in communities where family is so important, and there's multi-generational households, multi-generational families. It's joking and taking the piss out of a situation goes hand in hand with loving someone. It's kind of like you don't joke with someone and you don't gag with someone who you don't care about. You just don't spend the time,
Well, here's the thing,
and you don't know they're going to take it. So the fact that they're in the situation where he's messing with people and finding humor and trying to turn things around, that is a form of how affection for him, right? That is how we show people that we care by riffing and by taking this from each other. And I feel like a sense of humor is also something that a lot of communities lean on, especially in tough times, right? Having that sense of humor, having that sense of camaraderie. So I do try to weave it in and then always have the stories come back to, those family moments, which is a lot more straightforward during a holiday to find family moments, sometimes in everyday life, when it's not a holiday. But this being a holiday special, it's nice to be able to lean on something.
Yeah. And then speaking of the colorist here, Ralph, one of the things I noticed, again, we've talked about a lot of rich tones. Everything that's in the foreground is using kind of a blue and a purple look. In the background, we're going into the yellows and browns. All the walls go from light to dark. Clearly that helps with contrast, but also it feels like the warmth is coming from the table and then dissipates as it goes away from the table. So there's kind of this visual storytelling of like, the warmth is right there at the table where the family's sitting. So how much input are you guys going back and forth on Ralph on how to add and change color?
I mean, I think for me, I think we tried to give him leeway. We found out, I think this was the first story we worked on. So we found out on this story, we all sort of know where we're going. We can read each other. It's like being in a band that is very good at being in the pocket. You have to be able to follow each other wherever you're going. And so I think we realized pretty early on that we were pretty good at that. And, we'll give little suggestions here and there if there's something nitpicky, but usually that's all it is pretty nitpicky things. And, we learned, even though Ralph is German, we learned that we can trust him very early on. When people have we have an automatic, a visceral reaction to that.
Yeah,
it's joking, by the way. Germany is a wonderful country now, and in our country, and for like anti-hatred stuff. So and Ralph is lovely.
Who'd have thunk it?
Right?
Yeah, I think he's the way Ralph works is always pretty amazing. Like when we get colors back, it's always more than we were thinking would originally be there. I don't think there's details. We can give him more details that he would add on his own. He's super intuitive.
Just give him a small folder of reference, and it's usually, for things like
Yeah.
menorahs or groggers. Like, there's no way, why would he know what that looked like?
Yeah.
So it's usually a
Yes.
small file folder of reference, and then I kind of just, let him do his thing because he shines every time. So
So yeah, and
micromanaging
you know
necessary.
what's going to be great too is Ralph has his own variant cover he did for the
Cool.
book.
Yeah, he did.
So Alex has the main cover. Ralph did the variant cover B, which he did the line art and the colors for. And then Ralph also did the logo design, which is a fantastic logo.
Which is
So he did the
brilliant.
logo
It
design
is.
for
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah. I thought for sure that was out of you, Alex. It felt like it was your work on the logo design, but that's a very cool logo.
He captured that really well. Something that complemented the line work, and
Yeah.
almost looked hand drawn. But that's all him. He knocked it out of the park.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. When you're writing these stories and you're kind of putting these families together, I know that you're probably planning future stories. Is there any particular family member that you're like, oh, I want to make sure to explore this character more and really give them more depth?
For sure. I mean, Alex wants to do all of them. Um, He's like, let's do all of them. I mean, I definitely do. I mean, I think they all have, that's something that I think we discovered early on when we did Time and Passover, before expanding it out into everything else, was there's a lot here. There's a lot of these characters. And it's because, I went in and took from my family and my friend's family, and then Alex took a
Yeah.
little bit from his family. And it's just like, and then we switched it and we changed things and things we saw. So, to be able to put this much history into characters and have something that's baked in and have something that's fictional on top of the stuff that's, memory based, I think allows us to expand upon them. So in the book, we do more. Of course, Ben's a central figure for everything.
Yeah.
We do a new character is his influencer cousin Ella, who's you're going to explore, which will be great. She has a YouTube channel that is called Schmoozin' with Ella, and it'll be her, talking and interviewing people.
Yeah.
And then we're going further into his cousin Mark. We're going further into, his dad because they partner up, and a little
Yeah.
bit more about the grandparents because I feel like that's important too. Yeah,
Of course.
him and his cousin Mark team up for the mystery in the Hanukkah story. So that's
Okay.
them together trying to figure out the Hanukkah mystery. I'm putting them sort of like Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman in Seven. Only
Mhm.
I'm calling the story's called Eight. But
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And so
Uh,
just to follow up, yes, I want to draw all of them, but Carpet Caleb, I want to see where that dude comes from, and I want
oh
to
my God.
know
Yeah. I
more
want to
about
see like a panel that's one of his ads that are like really
her.
bad ads, the local ads. Yeah.
I love all the
You want it?
characters. I want stories about all of them, but that's going to be a fun.
I could put that in for you, Frank. I can make that happen.
Let's do that. Yeah. No cheap carpets. Don't have footprints in the
Some,
carpets. Yeah.
somewhere between a QVC and the Ghostbusters commercial. We'll just kind
Oh
of
my
pop it in
God, the
there.
Ghostbusters commercial. Yes, please, so much.
Well, I was thinking he was like leafing neighborhoods, and his family whose house he goes to got one of them, and they're like, "What is this?"
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, he's probably paying like the neighborhood kids to go leaf everywhere and has them like competing for who can cover the most
Yeah.
ground. Yeah.
He's like, "Well, give me
Oh,
that
that's
back if you're not going to keep it. That costs money."
yeah. Okay, yeah, now I want a lot more of him too. That's really good.
They're all
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes.
There you go. So if you guys want in on this book right now, the links are obviously in the description. Where do we plan on going with the future of this story? Do you guys want to cover more holidays, or you just want to expand the family in general?
I think in general, we're kind of coming in hot with the holidays, but
Yeah.
we definitely want it to be something that explores, the families in the quieter moments, in the, more emotional moments, in the everyday life kind of stuff. So yeah, the holiday special was just us being, deciding to just like swing for the fences in the first
Heck
book.
yeah.
But we definitely
Exactly.
we want to tell a lot of different stories with them though.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, what's interesting about the family at the center of Sticks and Stones is Ben, of course, and he's an interesting character, but then also taking it into regular storytelling territory. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
what's it like when Ben enters the science fair at school, right? What's it like when, like you take these characters and you put them into different situations, or, he has to go to camp. What's camp like for that family, right?
Yeah.
There's also specifically Jewish camps. That could be, where you go for like
Oh.
summer camp,
I went to Camp
these camps.
Swig in the
Did
Saratoga
you?
Hills. Yes,
I
I
have.
did.
I did not, because I was not a fan of
I
Sleepaway.
hated
We'll get into that later on with some therapy, maybe. But
That's definitely a character. It's not
yeah,
a fan.
but my cousins all did that, and loved it. So, that kind of a summer camp thing. So looking at, right, life, everyday stories with this
Yeah.
family, I think would be interesting to take them on that journey, like you do with, a lot of other Sunday strip characters of families and shows like, Family Guy, Simpsons, Jetsons, Flintstones, right?
Yeah.
All
Oh, yeah.
these types of families. But yeah, throwing us into the holidays, like I was saying before, it gives us this great chance to meet them in the pressure cooker holiday environment,
Yeah. That's a good
really
point.
get to know these characters, and then say, okay, well, now what are they like on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
one of those things too, if you give, if they're gonna love them at their best, you got to give them their worst too. Make sure they really love these characters. And I don't know many relatives for my money that have any issues with showing their worst right off the bat.
Yeah, especially at the holidays. We're all at the
They
edge.
consider you family right away, so it's like there's no facade anymore once you're part of that gathering.
Yeah. One story, I'm just going to pitch this to you guys right now. I'm just thinking like the Jewish corner, the competitiveness of bar and bat mitzvahs, where it's like trying to get invites or trying to, oh, this one's got a DJ going to theirs. So suddenly like this competitive nature. Can you imagine Ben in that situation? That's going to be
Oh
a
yeah.
blast. Yeah.
That'd be really
I get
fun.
what if Ben did like a murder mystery bar mitzvah thing? He did like a whole thing. It'd be
Yeah.
Yeah.
fantastic.
And some of his friends are like totally not into it. They're just kind of like, this is supposed
Yeah,
to be a normal one. Yeah.
he's doing this again. Okay.
And honestly, you that's what Alex and I love about these characters, is that there's so many possibilities taken in the
Right.
story.
Yeah.
And it's something that, you know, I know I would have wanted to read, you know,
Mhm.
when I was reading books like Archie books and Harvey books and, those kind of books too. It's like it just kind of has that vibe and energy that is missing a little bit. So
Yeah. It's a beautiful story already, guys. I can't wait to see where it goes. Ben is such an endearing character, and so is his entire family. Make sure you guys are headed to the links in the description to make sure you guys are grabbing a copy now and getting in on this. Can we finish off with 3 rapid fire questions? Are you guys
Yeah.
out for those?
Let's do
yeah,
it.
let's go.
Okay. What is your favorite character besides Ben? I think we went with the carpet one for you, Alex, but is there anybody else?
Oh,
For me, it's Music Mom.
Yes.
I like. I'm a big fan of music parodies. Big like Weird Al fan and all that jazz. So it's like having everyone has a relative who just breaks into song and makes things happen. So I'm a fan of hers.
If we're doing rapid fire, I'm just gonna stick with Carpet Caleb because I don't want to think about it too much. But
There you go.
he's awesome. Music Mom is super fun too.
What non-Jewish holiday do you want to see this family try to tackle next?
Do you think
I would-
Thanksgiving?
For me,
No,
I would go Easter, because I just want to see Ben with the Easter Bunny.
Oh my God, yeah.
well, then there'd be
4th
the
of July
Easter
with
egg
fireworks seems like a good
there's-
heist.
Yeah,
There's something there too.
Yeah.
I mean it's already, if you're already hunting for eggs, right? I mean you're already you're halfway there.
Right.
Yeah. And then lastly, what is the hardest scene to finish out of this book so far?
What a scene.
You want to talk about something you're currently writing?
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
give me
have
that
to
too.
talk about something. Yeah, it's something I'm currently working on. So what's the hardest thing to finish right now, to work on as a scene, is writing either the Hanukkah story. What I'm efforting to do in that story is, since it's an 8-page Hanukkah story and it's called 8 because it's a mystery, I'm trying to do 1 page equals 1 night of Hanukkah. for the whole
Oh,
story.
wow.
And then the story
Those are
unfolds
strengths.
that way. Yeah. And so I kind of created a little puzzle box for myself, but it's been super fun trying to write my way out.
For me,
That's where
it was
creativity shines, though. Those
for me,
strengths.
it was the matzah map in Crime and Passover,
Oh,
the double page spread.
it's so good too. I want to give a shout out to Ralph as well for the colors on this thing too, because
Yeah.
like the bright yellows and everything. That is such a good page. Yeah,
Thanks,
that's a
man.
really good pick.
Yeah, so that was one of those things where like Aaron had written that, and it kind of been like, okay, he's telling this story, and the main direction was just like it looks like it comes alive on the matzah. And so for me, it like never having done anything like that before, it was sort of a moment of panic. So, but I think we pulled it out in the end. We were all pretty happy with it.
It was pretty amazing. What did we say? It was probably the first appearance of a matzah panel.
Oh yeah, the whole panel is
any
matzah,
comic
by the
book.
way.
Yeah,
There's
Yeah.
no
but
panel
it gives
border.
Goonies vibes. I can't exactly tell you why, but it just gives me
Oh,
Goonies vibes
I think
somehow.
it's the color palette. I think it's the
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah, that
looks
was kind
so
of the
good,
vibe. I
guys.
think my
Which
note
I
in the
love.
script there was
Yeah.
it looks like it looks like the map of like in the beginning of Lord of the Rings or some other thing, and only instead
Yeah.
of parchment, it's matzah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see Cousin Mark like running across like the plane from Indiana Jones. You can see Dotted
Yeah.
lines behind him.
Yeah,
I took it
it's a
seriously
real.
too, because that all of that is hand drawn, like all of the dots across the
Oh.
page. Like,
Alex, they have computers now. Make
Ah,
an easier way of doing that, man.
an analog
Yeah,
guy.
you went
Little
you went crazy on that. That's my favorite. The double page spread there is
It's
great.
So good. Well, guys, again, everybody, make sure you guys are heading to the links in the description to get your copy now. Thank you both, Aaron and Alex, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks so much, Frank. Really appreciate it.
It was good meeting you, Aaron. All right, everybody, make
too.
sure you guys head to the description, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Work moves fast. Every email, report, and proposal counts. That's where Grammarly comes in. It's your one place to think, write, and finish. Grammarly's AI agents help you find natural phrasing, fine-tune tone, and confidently write wherever you work. It's the premier writing tool that 93% of users trust to get more work done. In a world of generic AI, don't sound like everyone else. With Grammarly, you never will. Download Grammarly for free at Grammarly.com.